From the air in Darfur, you can see the camp's hundreds of hastily erected tents that house the 2 million that have fled. But it is on the ground, underneath every tree in Darfur, that the full enormity of what has happened is revealed. Here the displaced gather for shade from the hot sun, and under every tree there are terrible stories. These are the stories that Refugees International advocates record and bring to the powerful policymakers in the US and Europe. Aceh is from West Darfur, and like hundreds of thousands of others, she fled to neighboring Chad, not by helicopter or car or bus, but on foot, walking for days after Janjaweed militia attacked her village. "What happened to your baby?" we asked. "I had to leave him in the desert. He died," she told us. For half an hour, Aceh told us that she had seen militia attack her village. Her husband was killed. Other male family members, too, were murdered. Under every tree in this sand-swept land, you hear similar stories. But Aceh is relatively lucky. She has escaped Sudan. Back behind the border, things are getting worse. Villages burned, livestock killed, wells poisoned, in a conflict which has pitted rebels against government-backed militia with the civilian population caught in the middle. Kalma camp is now home to 100,000 displaced. By day, the camps seem normal. People pump for water. Children make toys from the sand and plastic bags, and markets flourish. However, this normalcy is deceptive. Both inside and outside the camp, rape is commonplace, and women are attacked when they venture out for firewood. Local Sudanese medical staff fear they will be arrested if they treat a woman who says she has been raped, and some have. Humanitarian groups trying to provide assistance to survivors of sexual violence have been repeatedly harassed. Few women are brave enough to face the stigma of rape and speak out about what has happened to them. Noura is a 22-year-old woman from Baba village. It was attacked in August 2004. 15 people were killed, including her father and uncle. Now the oldest of 10 children, she has to support the whole family. So she goes out into the field to collect grass, which earns her $1 a day. Recently, when she was in the field, 2 men held her at gunpoint, stripped her, beat her, and gang raped her. She still bears the scars.
I can't stay outside the camp just because I'm afraid. I must go out. I need money for the children.
Her friends say now she will have trouble getting married. Her bride price before the rape would have been 30 head of cattle. Now she will be lucky to find a husband at all. Most rapes go unreported. In this traditional Muslim society, rape is a stigma that few women can overcome. Women are often shunned by their community. Ahmed Abbas is a Darfurian who fled to Chad after the Janjaweed attacked his village.
Every man over 15 years old is killed, and pregnant women are cut open in case they are carrying a boy. Sudan has become a country for Arabs only, and there is no room for blacks. The government wants to kill all the blacks and replace them with Arabs because Darfur land is good for cultivation.
In the summer of 2005, things seemed to be getting better in Darfur. Millions had found relative safety in the camps. The basics of life are provided. Though hardly any life at all, people at least feel safer. In Labado and Darfur, villagers started to return, even though their homes had been decimated and families brutally attacked. The arrival of the African Union Force gave people hope that they might return, hoping to plant their fields once more when the rains came. But as Darfur slipped from the international headlines, the violence erupted again.
How many children to the class you are counting?
As Kofi Annan stated in January 2006, Darfur is descending. The situation is getting worse, not better. The Bush administration has labeled what is happening here in Darfur as genocide. But there are no Western troops here on the ground. The only thing that stands between the government of Sudan forces, their militias, and the rebel groups is the African Union mission in Sudan. As the UN debates when, how, and if to send a UN peacekeeping force to Darfur, the AU force has little of the modern weaponry needed to protect the defenseless populations. All they are able to do is send out patrols to protect women while they collect firewood and document the many violations of the ceasefire between the government of Sudan and the rebel movements. With a little under 7,000 troops in an area the size of France or Texas, the AU are outgunned and literally lack the power to protect. Refugees International has led the call for a strengthened AU force in Darfur, demanding that the U.S. support the African Union with money and equipment, and that the UN move quickly to get their troops in. But in the meantime, the rebel groups are very well armed, and despite an arms embargo, the government of Sudan and its proxy fighters, the Janjaweed, have plenty of guns. The consequences are seen at makeshift hospitals like this one, limbs gone, wounds inflicted by bullets or machete. Scenes like this are reminiscent of Rwanda, just a decade after the world said never again. It is happening again. In recent months, the African Union peacekeepers have been kidnapped, killed, and outgunned. Humanitarian workers have been attacked and evacuated from key areas. Banditry is rife, and the displaced in the camps in Darfur are still preyed upon by Janjaweed, rebels, and government police and soldiers. Violence continues with impunity. Despite the extreme violence, rape, and destruction in Darfur, despite the fact that President Bush and the U.S. Congress have accused the government of Sudan and its militias of genocide, the killing gets surprisingly little press coverage. One exception is Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times.
You told them that you were pregnant, and they still went ahead and raped you?
He has visited Darfur 5 times and written many columns about the horrors he saw.
We have pictures of 2-year-old kids with their faces bashed in by the Janjaweed. We have every bit of documentary evidence that you could possibly want, and it's happened in slow motion, and yet still we can't muster the initiative and the indignation to actually stop it.
Like Refugees International, Nicholas Kristof has called the death and displacement in Darfur genocide. But not enough people are listening. At least 200,000 have been killed, but some put the figure as high as 400,000. Displaced people are always vulnerable. 75% of the refugees in the world are women and children. However, the stories of the most powerless always stand out. In Camp Zamzam, we met Khadija. What do you want with an old woman like me, she said. Khadija, who is in her 60s, is blind. She has no children and has been separated from her family, which in Darfur today means that she has no one to support her. In normal times, villagers would help her. They'd make sure she had enough to eat. But here in the camps, Khadija is struggling. Khadija, Ache, Ahmed Abbas, none of them know each other, but their stories bear witness to the destruction of Darfur that unites them all. Under every tree, countless Darfurians tell shockingly similar stories, but the real shock is that destruction continues while the world watches. Refugees International has worked consistently to generate food and protection for the people of Darfur. It has pressed the African Union to expand its peacekeeping force and urged the U.S. to provide more help, to act, not just talk, about the need to stop genocide. Genocide must not go unchallenged.